In the previous session, we saw the process of respiration consists of two steps. First is the breathing and second is the cellular respiration. In the cellular respiration, we saw that the cells which are performing various life processes like nutrition, respiration, excretion, transportation, all of these cells require energy, and this energy was obtained from the oxygen that helped in the breakdown of food, right? So in this way we saw that the cellular respiration was the kind of respiration which occurs in cell. This is the second step. The very first step is breathing. Why is breathing important? Because breathing helps us in taking in the oxygen that we require to break down the food, right? So in this session we are going to talk about the importance of breathing and how it affects our life, right? So now let's go ahead and perform an activity, and this activity, students, should be conducted under the supervision of your teacher, right? Please do not conduct the activity alone, right? What you have to do in this activity is that you need to close your nostrils and mouth for some time, right? When you do that, what you will feel after some time, you feel suffocated. That means you feel uneasy and you get the urge to remove your hands from your mouth and nose, and so that you can breathe properly. Why this happens? What is the reason of this particular urge to breathe, right? What you have to do in this activity is to note down and observe for how long were you able to hold your breath, right? When you will when you will do this, you will see that you're not able to hold your breath for a very long time, only a few seconds. The reason is that when you hold your breath, right, what happens is your body consumes the oxygen which you have taken in, and the body feels the urge of more and more oxygen, right? And when you remove your hand, you will observe that you start breathing fast and you start taking in deep breaths. The reason is that during this activity, whatever oxygen was not, or rather whatever deprivation was of oxygen that occurred, has to be compensated. Meaning that during this time, your body consumed all the oxygen that was present in your body, right? All the cells consumed the oxygen. Now your body requires oxygen. Now your body requires more oxygen. So that's the reason why, to compensate the oxygen requirement, you start breathing heavily and deeply, right? Deeply means you start taking deep breaths. This activity indicates how important the presence of oxygen is, and the breathing mechanism. When I'm saying breathing mechanism, it shows that how, based on the circumstances, the breathing pattern in human beings or any other animals for that matter changes, right? Now let's understand what does breathing means. So breathing means taking in air that is rich in oxygen and giving out air that is rich in carbon dioxide with the help of the respiratory organs. These respiratory organs are your lungs, right? This is nose, right? And we'll see about all these respiratory organs, but for now let's just understand that these organs are lungs, nose, trachea, and so on. Right? We will talk about the respiratory organs of human beings in this particular chapter. For now, let's just understand that breathing is taking in oxygen rich air and giving out the carbon dioxide rich air. This oxygen rich air is supplied to every cell of the body, where the breakdown of glucose takes place, which helps in the release of energy, right? Now, breathing itself has two parts. First is the inhalation, right? And second part is the exhalation, right? This diagram shows these two parts, that is the inhalation and exhalation. So this is inhalation and this is exhalation. Right? Inhalation means taking in oxygen rich air, and exhalation is releasing out carbon dioxide rich air. Right? So please remember this definition, that inhalation is taking in air that is rich in oxygen, and exhalation is giving out air that is rich in carbon dioxide. Right? So this is inhalation and exhalation. Now this process is continuous, that means it goes on one after the other. I'm pretty sure none of us must have noticed this process going on in our body, because it is such a easy process and it occurs like 24/7 that this process is hardly noticeable. But now once we are studying about this process, now if you just calm down and think and you just observe your breathing pattern, you will see the very first thing that you do is inhale the air, and the next thing that you do is exhale, right? So first you take in the oxygen and immediately you exhale, that is you give out the carbon dioxide. That is why we say that it is a continuous process. It's a whole cycle which goes on one after the other, right? When we talk about breath, right, we say breath. So breath constitutes one inhalation and one exhalation, right? That means when you inhale once, right, it means that when you inhale once and when you exhale once, this whole one inhalation and exhalation is one breath, right? Remember students, both these processes together form a single breath. Only inhalation is not breathing, right? So one breath is one inhalation and one exhalation, right? Now when we talk about one breath, we can also relate over here the rate of breathing. Rate of breathing means the number of breath per minute. Number of breath per minute. That means in 1 minute, how many breaths do you take? Once you understand that one inhalation and one exhalation is one breath, it is very easy for you to calculate how many breaths you are taking in a minute. Now this is, again, let's go on and perform one activity. It's a very interesting activity and it will give you the insight of rate of breathing. How is it related to the activity or the way you are, what activity you are doing? Rate of breathing depends on that, and how it happens. Let's do an activity and understand that. Now let's perform an activity to understand the rate of breathing with the activities that we do. That what is the relationship between the activity and the rate of breathing. Now in this activity, we are going to do this activity with a group of friends, right? You also call your friends and do this activity. It is a fun activity and you will also be able to compare the breathing rate in your friends, right? So let's say first of all, write down the names of your friends and yourself. Now ask your friend to take a stopwatch and fix the time for 1 minute. Now when you're sitting normally, like I am sitting right now, ask your friend to start the stopwatch and then you start counting your breaths. Suppose at the normal at rest position, like I am sitting right now, your breaths are 15 breaths per minute. Always remember, when you are counting your breath, always count one inhalation and one exhalation. So when you inhale and exhale, that is your first breath. Then again, in the same way, keep on counting. Let's say in a minute you took 15 breaths. Now what you do is go on a brisk walk for 10 minutes. Brisk walk, student, means that you're walking fast, right? It's not a simple casual walk. You need to walk fast for 10 minutes. You might find that the rate has increased now, say to up to like 20 breaths per minute. Then what you do is next, you start running now. Keep running for like 100 meter and then come back and repeat the activity, that is counting your breaths for 1 minute, and you might see that the breath has increased to say 25 to 26 breaths 1 minute. Then again, whenever you come back at the rest position, that your body is now, you're not breathing heavily or deeply and your breathing is normal, then count again. You will see that the normal rate which you started with, that is 15, you will come back to 15 again, 15 or 16 again, right? This activity you can do with all your friends so that you can compare that what is your breathing rate, what is your friend's breathing rate, and so on. This is a fun activity, but this activity gives a very important insight. What is that? That the breathing rate is depending on the kind of activity that we are doing. Whenever we are doing low energy level activity, that means we are sitting or we are simply talking, what happens is that the energy requirement is less. So the breathing rate is also less, right? It is normal, no extra oxygen is required. But whenever we are doing high energy requirement activity, so like what are these high energy activities? What are these high energy activities? These are like running, playing, right? Or when we are, walking fast. So the requirement of energy increases, and as and when our body requires more and more energy, that means more and more of oxygen is also required, right? So as the energy requirement increases, so does the oxygen requirement, right? So when our body needs more energy, the oxygen requirement also increases, and thus the breathing rate also increases, right? Because the body requires more oxygen, so the breathing rate increases so that the requirement of the oxygen can be fulfilled. In this way, we see how breathing rate is dependent on the activity that we are doing. So we see that as soon as we start taking more and more of oxygen reaches the cell, right? Oxygen goes into the cell, and breakdown of the food takes place, releasing energy, right? And this is the reason why we need more of oxygen during the high energy activities. Also, if you see that when suppose you are before you are going to play, you might not feel as hungry, but let's say you went out and played football for 1 hour. After that, when you come back, you feel hungry. Why? Because all the food that was there in your system, or all the say glucose that was there in your system, was utilized and broken down to release the energy that you needed during playing, right? And now you feel hungry. That means you want more food so that you can get more energy, right? So this is the reason why we see that the requirement of oxygen is increased. Now, Bojo has a question that when he was holding his breath and after releasing it, he had to breathe heavily. That means more and more deeper breaths he had to take. Why was it so? Because when he was holding his breath, the body oxygen became less, right? The oxygen that was present in the body was utilized to release energy, and the oxygen level decreased in the body. As soon as he released the breath and started breathing, the oxygen requirement, because it has already increased, so the breathing rate increased so that it could fulfill the requirement of the oxygen in the body. And that is the reason why this kind of activity showed heavy breathing, right? Now, again, there is a very important question, that is that Paheli wants to know, why do we yawn when we are sleepy or drowsy? So why do you think that whenever, why are we sleepy or drowsy? Suppose I am sitting after a long day of work, I feel sleepy. The reason for that is low energy level, right? Low energy level. Low energy means that the body is in the requirement of more and more of energy. Again, like I said, more energy requirement means more oxygen. So whenever we yawn, yawn is always associated with deep breathing. So whenever you yawn, you must have observed that you breathe deeply during the yawn. This deep breathing will cause more intake of oxygen, right? When the body intakes more oxygen, what happens? That more release of energy takes place, right? And in this way, we see that yawning actually happens to release more energy in the body, so that your sleepy and drowsy state can be reinstated and you feel more and more energized, right? When we were talking about the breathing rate, let me inform you that the breathing rate in a healthy adult is about 15 to 18 times per minute. During the heavy exercise, it can reach up to 25 times per minute. So this happens during heavy exercises, right? And this is at rest. Right? So in this way, we see how the breathing rate and deep breathing is associated with the amount of energy that is required by us. Now, let's perform another activity in which you can see what you are going to do is you are going to note down the breathing rate of your friends or your family during these activities, and you can do it with your own self. That first of all, when you say your brother is sleeping, see the breathing rate, check the breathing rate, and you will find that when say your brother or sister is sleeping, the breathing rate is comparatively lower, because sleeping is a low energy activity. Low energy, that means during sleeping your body does not require lot of energy. Then let's say when you are playing, so this is a high energy activity. That means your body requires more energy, and you will see that you start taking deep breaths, and you start breathing heavily, right? Again, while studying, what is this energy? It is again a low energy activity in which you will find a slow breathing rate, a normal rather breathing rate. Then you have the activity that is walking. Right? Now, walking is a high energy activity. If I have to arrange these activities in which the breathing rate is lowest to the highest, what I will do is first of all sleeping, because that is the lowest energy requiring activity. Then you have studying, right? Then you have walking, and ultimately you have playing. So in this way, we see the breathing rate varies with each of these activities, because every activity has a different breathing rate requirement or different energy requirement, right? So in this way, students, we saw that what is breathing, and we saw how breathing rate is associated with the activities that we are performing, and how directly it depends on the energy requirement of the body during those activities. I hope you were able to understand this process properly.